This one was interesting. Doug Whaley, he was a former NFL GM for the Bills. I can't remember if he was a GM for another team, but he has Pittsburgh connection. So sometimes he does some Pittsburgh media rounds, goes on shows like 93.7 The Fan, and gives his takes on the Steelers. And we react to him. We talk about him. So I guess recently he was talking about George Pickens and the Steelers receiver situation. And he thinks Pickens ain't going to be a Steeler for life. Pickens, his tenure with the Steelers is going to end similarly to other high-profile receivers of the past here in Pittsburgh, like Antonio Brown or Santonio Holmes. Here's the quote. He says, "Everybody knows it's going to come to an end very badly. He's talented," referring to Pickens, and says, "What I call talent is the great seductress. So Medusa is there, and you keep Medusa until it comes to an end, just like it did with AB, just like Holmes. Just keep on running down the list. But I would do it just for right now because you got a window. The defense is hanging on by a thread. You sign Russ for 3 or 4 years. Now, that might be a stretch. I don't know if we're going to sign Russ for 3 or 4. I think right now, like a little 2-year extension would work. Maybe you make it 3, but you make the guarantees where it fits in for a 2-year window. But then he goes on and says, keep them together because you have a target and a talent and some talent there. And when the other talents you add start to overtake him, he starts to, when his production dips, where you can't tolerate it anymore, you get rid of him. So that's he's basically talking about the AB path right there, because we did give AB the extension. We kept him around. I think AB was on the Steelers for around 10 years. Was it 10 years total? But we know his peak was that 6-7 year stretch, Killer B era. He was just absolutely going off, best receiver in the league. So he thinks it's going to be very similar with Pickens. And I see what he's saying in a way. There's some off the field stuff. There's some nonsense that has popped up with Pickens in his first 3 years here. But am I crazy for holding out hope that Pickens actually could be a Steeler for life? I actually think it fits. I don't know what it is. There's something about Pickens with the Steelers, with Tomlin. It fits. And it actually fit with AB. Even though there was some jankiness going on, you saw how Tomlin was able to keep that under wraps and how Tomlin was able to get the most production out of AB and did just the best out of AB compared to every other situation that he was in. But AB, I think, just took that for granted, thought the grass was greener elsewhere. And I think he learned his lesson, man. You see some of the interviews, you see some of the comments that AB has made in regards to Tomlin and the Steelers. And he admits, he's like, yeah, I kind of messed up, man. I kind of had a good thing going. So I think it's similar with Pickens here. And my other thing is, it's not a guarantee, and because it wasn't a guarantee back with AB, that you're going to be drafting a receiver or bringing in a guy that's going to be able to replace Pickens just like that. Because who do we have on the roster right now? No one. No one's replacing Pickens. Absolutely no one. So you're just talking about draft picks down the line that maybe you could pick up and hope that they're able to be at a George Pickens type of caliber. Because let's not act like George Pickens ain't one of the top receivers right now. He's top 6 in receiving yards. With all the miscues and some of the Pickens nonsense and the Pickens stuff that has taken place this year, let's not act like he ain't contributing and being big-time productive for us. This is a career year for him. This is his best season in the NFL. Year 3. He's top 6 receiving yards. And if you want to go through that top 6, the first 3 guys, it's Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb. I think that's the undisputed top 3 of the league whenever you're talking about receivers. So no surprise there. But then you get to the next guys. Terry McLaurin's at 4, Zay Flowers at 5, and Pickens is at 6. And what's funny about Pickens being at 6 is that he has one less game than a couple of these guys that are ahead of him too. So that's going to start balancing out as the season goes on, and some of these teams got to take their buys. Top 6. Who else you getting better? Pickens is in that top 10 class where, outside of those top 3, Chase, Jefferson, Lamb, you could make a case. Maybe Pickens is a top 5 or 6 guy. Now you have some more legacy dudes with the bigger names, A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel with the Niners. You got some guys that typically, like a Cooper Kupp, you're typically throwing them in the top 10 and not even thinking about it. But some of these dudes have been banged up, and they're getting up there in age. So it is about that time for a new era or a new wave of receivers to be infiltrating that top 10, that top 5, and Pickens is right there, man. Like, he's top 6 in receiving yards. You can't say he's not in that type of conversation. Now, his stats and yards could be better if it wasn't for some of the drop issues that have popped up this year. But again, even with all that being said, he's playing really good. Playing really good. And I'm also thinking, I'm starting to think this at least. He doesn't really have problems with his teammates. He doesn't really have problems in the locker room. I think his Steeler teammates get him when he either messes up or he says something wrong in the media. Because last year, I feel like it was just a Pickett thing. Rookie year, we didn't really hear much from Pickens. I think he was flying under the radar. It was just that Falcons game where he wasn't getting targets and he looked upset on the bench. That was really the only thing his rookie year. Last year, I think it was about Pickett. He just didn't like Pickett as his quarterback. And I think a lot of the other players on the Steelers last year, as more comes out and more people and more Steelers talk about the 2023 year, it just doesn't seem like they were a big fan of Pickett being here. So, like, this year, we're seeing some immaturity still. But it feels like it's really only in his media answers and dealing with opponents. He had that one game where we were talking about the snap management and him running some lazy routes, but he hasn't been throwing anyone on this team under the bus or causing any locker room toxicity, which overall, it seems like Pickens is trending in the right direction then. What's that saying? You're either getting better or you're getting worse. And I would say as a professional, as a teammate, and as a Steeler, Pickens is going in the right way, and I think there's something to be said for that. And sometimes, too, players are just wired a certain way. We knew you could maybe get some jankiness with Pickens when he was coming out of Georgia when we drafted him, and that's the risk you take sometimes. But on the flip side, sometimes that's needed in a locker room. Sometimes you need that one-off guy, those outlier type of players that will take things up an extra level. Have that type of energy that you just don't know. They could be off the cuff sometimes, like Joey Porter with us back in the day. Sometimes that rallies the troops. Sometimes that rallies the team and gets the energy level to a spot where it needs to be. And I'm thinking it's the same way with Pickens because he's really that only guy. Sometimes you just need that one guy. Maybe it's one guy on offense, one guy on defense. That, all right, yeah, we know there might be a screw loose here or there, but he's our guy. Like, we get him. We get him. Even if the outsiders don't, we're going to ride with that guy. So I think, like, back in the day with the Steelers, Joey Porter, and hell, yeah, we're talking about receiver. I even mentioned AB as I'm talking about this. AB could be another example. So I think that's where we're at with Pickens. I think it works. I think it works. Maybe Pickens could learn from AB's mistake and how he handled the end of his Steeler tenure. Maybe Pickens could just be like, all right, man, AB, he was one of the greats here. He took it for granted. Obviously didn't work out elsewhere. Maybe I got to really look at this situation and appreciate it. Because call me naive, but I think Pickens may have a chance to be a Steeler for life. I get what Whaley's saying here. It's a little premature to be saying it right now, Pickens in year 3, because a lot can happen from now until year 5, 6, you know what I mean? But I get what he's saying.